Hey, welcome to Shop Talk. I'm Brandi.
This is James, and we talk about all things related to cross-cultural workers and mental health.
Great. We're glad you're here. And welcome to season 2. We've made it to season 2.
Yeah.
Yay. Welcome, everyone. And James, Froelich Weihnachten.
Yeah, likewise, I'm sure.
So today we're going to talk about celebrating the holidays cross-culturally and what that's like. We've interviewed some people that we've lived and worked with overseas just to get their experiences too. I had some similarities with the people I talked to of living in similar cultures and having similar experiences with them. I'm going to ask you some Christmas questions now, James. You ready for them?
Yes. Santa.
All right, we're done. Yep. All right, number 1. Which country started the tradition of putting up a Christmas tree?
Well, I'm going to say Germany.
You're correct. All right, next one. What decoration do elves traditionally have on their shoes?
Jingle bells?
Yeah, bells. Well done. Which country did eggnog originate?
Let's say Netherlands.
In the UK.
Oh, man. UK was actually on the tip of my tongue.
Doesn't count, though.
Oh, well.
Okay, next one. How many gifts were given in total in the 12 Days of Christmas song?
352.
364.
Oh, I knew it was up there
That was
somewhere.
really close. How did you know that?
Well, because I saw it one time and remembered it.
Okay.
I certainly didn't do math that fast.
What is traditionally hidden inside a Christmas pudding?
King or baby.
A coin.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
There's a Swedish porridge, a Swedish thing you eat with a spoon that has an almond in it. Like someone gets an almond.
All right.
What time of day is the Queen's speech traditionally broadcast on Christmas Day?
Well, let's see. I would say 5 o'clock.
Sort of close, 3 p.m.
Oh, okay. It had to be afternoon and before tea. So
When do the 12 Days of Christmas start?
is it 12 days before Christmas? Or is it like
Christmas
December
Day.
1st? Oh,
Christmas Day.
really? Huh.
Yeah, it goes from Christmas Day to the Epiphany.
All right. That makes sense.
Lightning round. What do you get on the second day of Christmas? Go.
400. Oh, two turtle doves?
Nope.
On which day?
Yeah, okay. Second. What do you get on the 8th day of Christmas?
Wait, how is it not 2 turtle doves?
It is 2 turtle doves.
Oh, you said no.
Did I?
Eight maids a milking.
Mm-hmm. And 12th day.
Lords a leaping.
Yeah. Okay.
Now you're singing it in your head. Do you not have it written down?
No. All right. Yeah, you passed. Merry Christmas.
In the movie
Well done.
Elf, what city does Buddy travel in search of his father?
New York City.
Can you name any of the things he goes through to get there?
Candy Cane Forest.
Oh, there we go. Nice. Do you know who voiced the narwhal?
No. Who was it?
John Farva, the director.
Really? Bye, buddy.
Hope you find your dad. Do you guys
What are the
watch Christmas movies? Is that like one of your things?
We did. We watched Elf last weekend. A Christmas Story. Shoot your eye out, kid. It's a Wonderful Life.
Classic.
Charlie Brown Christmas. Sound of Music. It's not Christmassy, but we watch it on Christmas Day. It's going in the background on Christmas Day. Mhm.
How'd that get started?
I don't know, really. It was me. I don't know why we did that. And we did Die Hard one year for Christmas Eve. Do you guys do Die Hard? Is it a Christmas movie for you guys?
I mean, the movie takes place at Christmas, so it usually makes it into our rotation. Maybe every other year. It's probably not a yearly one.
Okay. What about you guys? What do you watch?
Family Christmas Vacation is normally the first one of the season.
Okay.
National Lampoons.
Mm-hmm.
Then Home Alone 1 and 2. Always watch Home Alone.
Oh, right. Okay.
My British friends introduced me to The Nativity, which is a pretty great one. Martin Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life, often on Christmas Day. It's not my favorite just because it's pretty long, but classic.
Yep.
Love Actually.
Okay. One year, or maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we came home from the Christmas Eve service, and I said, "Hey, let's do Die Hard this year." And it's been years since I watched it. There's some language in that movie.
Yep.
So my kids are like, "Mom," but now they kind of like watching it. So
There you go. The movies that you have seen as like an adult, especially a young adult, and then you go back and watch with kids and you're like, oh, I should not have recommended this.
Right? Way different memories of them. And it's like, oh, yeah. Hey, James, tell me about your first Christmas living overseas.
Although not technically over any seas, I spent a number of Christmases in Mexico.
Okay.
Working with a group that was connected to a radio station in the St. Louis area, and would kind of just create this group that would go down to Mexico of all these people that didn't know each other, all kinds of different backgrounds, and do some service projects over kind of the Christmas time. And we would always go down early and be there for Christmas Day. Actually, the first white Christmas I ever saw was in Mexico. And
really?
It was the coldest / first snow they'd had in like 115 years or something like that.
Wow.
And snow accumulated. It was pretty cold. I remember I made a snowman on the hood of the truck that we were driving around town. That's how much snow there was.
Okay. Like not enough for a snowman outside, like on the ground, but
yeah, I think I have had one Christmas in kind of my home context in the last 15 years, 14 years, something like that.
Okay.
So not a lot of opportunities to do Christmas as an adult, certainly not married, with family, with friends. Kind of, that's everything I've had has really been created in a cross-cultural context.
What was it like for you then, celebrating Christmas in different cultures? Like, did you have expectations that you brought from the States, or because it sounds like you spent a lot of them overseas? So I was just wondering how many expectations you brought with you of what it should be like, or what you hoped for it to be like.
I don't think any, just because my family didn't do a lot of traditional things. We did different things every year. And actually, one of the people I interviewed, Chris, we talk about some of the traditions that we created. And now when I think about Christmas, that's the memories I have. So watching movies, decorating, some of the foods are actually based about that kind of very integrated experience. They're British, and we had friends from South Africa, from Zimbabwe, from Kenya that were all kind of a part of what we were doing, and kind of created this really cool set of Christmas traditions that now is still what I consider kind of a part of how I celebrate.
Our first experience.
Yeah, I was about to say, you guys have had Christmas in a number of different cultural contexts.
Yeah, we have. Well, our first Christmas was in St. Petersburg, Russia. Our first Christmas, cross-cultural Christmas. Our daughter was 2. Son hadn't been born yet. And it was interesting because they celebrate Christmas. The Russian Orthodox Christmas is 2 weeks after ours. So that was the first time I didn't really have all the traditional cues that I was used to leading up. Whereas they put their decorations up later in December, close to when we celebrate Christmas. They keep all their decorations up through January. So they celebrate New Year's is a big holiday, and then Orthodox Christmas, and then they have Orthodox New Year. And so that is all shifted. So that was an experience. And Mary Lou, the friend I talked to that I interviewed, talks about that also. But we're people of culture, and I love when she said that, because we do bring our culture with us. And so we have all the cues that we're used to with Christmas and with different holidays. And so then when you're living in a different culture, you're expecting it to be one way, which good or bad, whatever. And then it's a different way. So you're trying to adjust your first few years of what your expectations are and how to enjoy what you have around you also.
Well, I think people go in with an expectation, oh, this will be different. But I think there's just still this hope that there's going to be some of it that's the same. So some expectation, but also just some hope, like, wow, it would be great if we could have this.
You don't know your first couple of years. You don't know how it's going to feel. It's going to be different, but you don't know the effect that's going to have on you too. The good thing is everything's open on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So if you do need something, everything's open.
Yeah. Let's hear from some of the people we've talked to.
Sure. I talked to my friend Mary Lou Smyth. We worked together in Russia and Central Asia, and she celebrated many Christmases in both those areas. And so her perspective is very similar to mine. And she's the one who talked about how we are people of culture. And I just really appreciate how she brought that up in our conversation. Hey, Mary Lou, thanks for joining us on our podcast today. I love talking to you, and I love talking about some of our shared experiences in Central Asia. And I would like to hear from you what your experiences were celebrating Christmas in different cultures, and just what that was like for you. What you learned about yourself, what you learned about um, just the beauty and understanding different cultures that way.
Well, thanks, Brandi. You're one of my favorite people to talk with as well. So
Cater to say that.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah, celebrating Christmas in another country. I have had the pleasure of celebrating Christmas in several places. It is a strange experience. We are people of culture. And
Yep.
so I have been lived in Central Asia, where Christmas was just an average day. Stores were still open, people went to work. There was no Christmas decorations up, no lights, no Christmas carols in the stores. Actually, there were no stores. There was just the bazaar.
Right. Right.
So, and that is odd and a little unsettling. So you have to, I can remember my first Christmas in Central Asia, walking with my friends to another family's house to celebrate the day. And literally the buses were running and people were doing their normal thing. And it felt a little surreal. I don't find it particularly helpful for people to say, well, Jesus is the reason for the season. So you just have to, bring that joy of Jesus. Of course, Jesus is our reason for everything. We are people of culture. As I said, we are used to something. And when you think about Christmas being such a thing for kids, you develop all those traditions when you're so young. So I really think you have to be intentional when you're overseas and finding a way to celebrate that works for you. I have a huge family. So Christmas at home is chaotic. There are kids everywhere. There's noise. There's people. I can't replicate that overseas, and I don't want to, because other people's kids don't bring me as much joy as my sister's kids.
You bring up a good point. Right. In our culture in America, we start getting reminders for Christmas, like what, in September? If you go to certain stores, they got the decorations out and stuff. So it's just all around us. So when you live in a different culture, right, we aren't getting the same cues and we're not having the same experience that we've been used to. So it's just shifting that mindset. We were talking before recording, and you mentioned living in Russia and how New Year's was a big holiday there. That was our experience in Central Asia also, that New Year's was the big holiday there. So they would put up a lot of decorations for New Year's. And so, that was the big celebration. So we just had to shift that a little bit.
Yes. And I found, as a single person, I enjoyed another single woman friend organized a sleepover for a bunch of us single women. And that was fun. We got together at my apartment on Christmas Eve and we had a little party. We all slept over, and in the morning we had brunch. And that was fun. That now I would not necessarily turn that into a rigid construct and try to duplicate that any place I'd been. First thing in the morning, before coffee, I'm not the nicest person. So, like I pick and choose who I want around me first thing in the morning. But there are all sorts of things that you can do to make it fun, to either have people around you or not have people around you. At this point in my life, later in my years, when I am not home in the US with my family celebrating with the chaos, I tend to prefer Christmas morning by myself. It's quiet, it's reflective. I listen to Christmas music. I usually read through Bible passages, Luke, the whole thing and think about it. And I love that. I go for a walk sometimes. And then if I'm invited, I go, to somebody else's house for dinner. But I have spent the whole day alone and been fine with that. So I think it's finding what works for you.
Right. Hey, thanks for telling us about this and just your experience with celebrating cross-culturally.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great to hear from Mary Lou and her experience. Sounds like you guys have a lot of fun connecting too.
We do. Yeah, James, who did you talk to?
The first one I'm going to share is my friend Chris Arnold, who is originally from the UK, but we wound up in Kenya together and had, I think, 5 Christmases together and just developed some great traditions and fun. I just spent all my time at their house, and kind of out of that came this just wonder of Christmas fun that we did, combining his kind of British culture and my American culture. And it was great. They added kids as we went along. I added a wife eventually, and we really had just such fun creating Christmas memories. So here's Chris sharing his perspective of some of those events. I miss Christmas at your house.
Yeah, well, this is where we used to sit, and I remember the first year you sat outside here where it was just grass and we had Christmas.
Yeah, ever more larger and more complicated and fun.
Do you know, I found fun. We kind of adopted things to do here that we would never be able to do in an English Christmas. So like having a slip and slide became part of Christmas. Yet we wouldn't even do that in the summer in England.
You're welcome.
But it just became part of the day, didn't it? Going to midnight mass.
I slept through that one.
Yeah. Do you remember being invited to some old guy's house for Christmas, like Eve dinner?
Yeah. The funny part about that was there was like expectation of attire.
Right, yeah. An expectation that you had a reasonable grasp of Latin to read some of the prayers.
That's right. That was fun. I forgot about that. I had to borrow, I think I borrowed your jacket. You're wearing a proper DJ.
Yeah, but that was fairly standard for me.
That's true.
Making Christmas food the kind of morning of Christmas, everything covered in chocolate.
That's another American. You're welcome.
I think the things that I appreciate that we incorporated, we always went to church.
Yes.
Which was cool. And you and I would host the service together, which was probably the only time of the year we did that.
Yeah, I know. I would say we put on a show.
We put on a show for people who never usually go to church. And then we'd come home and have like the biggest breakfast ever, which was very cool. Yeah. And then it was, we actually adopted a new one since you left. There's this Icelandic tradition called Jólabókafest, which is basically a way that they see out Christmas Eve and seeing Christmas Day. And you give chocolate and a meaningful book to everyone in the household. And you kind of sit around on the sofas in front of the fire, cuddling up together to see out Christmas Eve and seeing Christmas Day.
Oh, nice.
Which is really cool.
That is cool. Thinking about Christmas and being overseas, and I mean, we put together some really fun traditions, which was new for me because my family didn't really have traditions. We didn't do the same thing every year because of my dad's work schedule and just where we were at. So the first time in my life I ever had what I would call traditions was with you guys in Kenya. And it was this conglomeration of like different cultural things.
Yeah, we were so far removed from our cultures of origin that it was almost like, what foundation could we give to a season where we're not surrounded by our work? Yeah, and I enjoyed it. We would, like, it would be hectic in the run up, but we would slow down intentionally and do different things, intentionally not think about work for a few days and think about enjoying the season, both the fun, but also the observation of it as well. Trying to think, what was probably the most watched Christmas movie?
Family Christmas Vacation. Because we didn't really watch It's a Wonderful Life because we typically slept through half of it.
Well, it used to go on every Christmas Day, didn't it? But it was kind of more, oh, good, that's the cue to have a small snooze.
Nothing against a movie, fine film.
Absolutely. I remember almost kind of by the time we got around to Christmas dinner, as excited as we were by it, we'd eaten quite a chunk by that point already in the day.
Yeah. A steady stream of food.
I just remember, because it's a weird time of year to pick up people because most Kenyans travel.
Right.
So we were left with kind of people who didn't have family or didn't have anywhere to go where they needed it, right?
Yeah. And a lot of expats use those opportunities to go home.
It's funny, they say that the one thing that marks out human civilization across every culture and every age in history is their ability to celebrate events. So it's like a common like unifier amongst cultures and ages. Yeah. So I think even for people who are kind of lukewarm to Christianity or wouldn't really have their own traditions, found that in this time and season having some sort of thing that looked familiar was helpful. We always loved sharing gifts, so kind of we'd make sure that whoever turned up there was like presents and stockings. And we found it interesting just hearing back from people over the few weeks. They're like, oh, we didn't think you'd get us a present or anything. We're like, wow, you're part of the family on Christmas, of course you get a present. So we've always enjoyed trying to be generous like that. Quirky stuff, it was great like being with you and you going, you eat this at Christmas? That's weird. Like, what is trifle? or mince pies, what are they?
Just because I'm uncultured doesn't mean it wasn't appropriate.
Yeah, trying to enculturate you was a big challenge, but it was worth it. I remember we had 2 turkeys cooking across the compound.
Yeah.
Like, so we had like 30 pounds worth of turkey. And the games, I enjoyed the games throughout the day because we would play silly games, but we'd also like slip and slide and start throwing a ball around and different things. You know, things that you love doing as a kid, but you forget to do as an adult.
Right.
So just like having a tennis ball, just sat there kind of chatting and enjoying each other's company, but just throwing a ball around together and stuff was fun.
I grew up thinking of croquet as just a silly little game kids play. And then I saw you play and was like, oh my gosh, there's different levels.
When you have a back injury like mine, you have to learn which sports you can take seriously.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever been beaten so badly in a yard game.
And then you and I would get the guitar and the ukulele out in the evening and play Christmas songs. It is funny kind of when you see different people's expectations and traditions and kind of all get thrown together in a melting pot, and you realize what matters to some people and what doesn't matter to some people. And Abby was very insistent that we would kind of open presents in an order so that everyone you get to see the face of the person who's opening the present, which has got increasingly harder as we've got young kids who do not want to wait around for their siblings to open presents. I don't know if you found this, but as we've introduced kind of our non-Christian friends to come and join us on for Christmas meal, they've been surprised at how important it is to us. Because for many people, it's kind of it's just a day with where nothing much goes on.
Right.
Whereas actually we take time there are certain things we do, like I know we pray as a family on Christmas Day and stuff, and we pause to look at stuff, and even just talking to our kids about why we do gifts and stuff, it has a different feel.
I think for people living cross-culturally, it's really about making it happen. Like it's just worth it to do that. It was worth it for your kids to like bring in some of those things that are important from your family, or to invite people over. If you have to be like, there's a cost to initiating it. Like you guys always hosted, like that's more work than it was for those that didn't host.
And I even enjoy the traditions that I don't really understand. Like I'm not really sure why crackers are part of Christmas dinner, but they're just fun to have around. What thing about Christmas traditions do you like the most? What's the one you think, yeah, this makes it feel like Christmas to me?
I mean, I think the tree, it sounds so basic, but definitely putting up a tree has kind of held that. I think of the things that we did, there was just this that I've done even after leaving, is kind of having people over to watch Christmas movies. We didn't really do that growing up, but that's just become a thing. Have food, have snacks, chat, watch a Christmas movie.
You know, I read this great quote recently, and it said that the early church didn't move from temple to temple, but from table to table, and kind of just inviting people in to be around and sharing food. I kind of take for granted because we do a lot of it, but the more you dig into it, I just don't think people do that as much anymore. And Christmas is such a great opportunity, isn't it? And we loved sharing some British Christmas movies that you hadn't seen before and stuff. Bless you, mate. Say hi to Ellie for me.
You bet. See you, buddy.
Lots of love. Speak soon.
Bye.
Hey, James, did you pick up any British Christmas traditions along the way?
For sure. We actually love doing the crackers. Chris talks about
Yes.
that. That's the little things you pull.
Those are so fun.
Yeah, you get a stupid hat, a stupid joke, and a weird gift, and it's fun. It's kind of like a thing to do.
I also talked to my friend Randi, who lives here in Kondern in Germany. She works at Black Forest Academy, and she and her family lived in Serbia for several years. And so she talks about what it was like introducing locals to some of the Christmas traditions and the give and take with that. So it was fun talking to her too. Okay, so now my friend Randi Israel is joining us. Woohoo! Thanks for joining us, Randi.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks, Brandi.
If y'all remember from the fun episode, Randy's the friend that I have fun with in the frozen food section of the grocery store.
A lot.
We do laugh a lot, probably unnecessarily, but it's all right. Okay, so Randi lived with her family for a while in the Balkans.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering what your perspective is, how it was being an American, celebrating Christmas in a different culture, and just observing what they do and don't celebrate there, and just how that shaped you.
Okay. We lived in Serbia for 10 years. Yeah, life there is very different. It wasn't third world. We say it was second world issues in Serbia. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a mental picture. They would consider themselves a Christian nation for sure. But they are mostly Orthodox, and so they celebrate very differently than we do, even on a different time frame. They celebrate Christmas in January.
7 days or 6 days after?
14 days after.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah, so they have New Year's as their big holiday where they give gifts, and then they celebrate Orthodox Christmas on the 7th.
Right.
And so everything's kind of pushed back. So they think we're crazy that we put up a Christmas tree so early. They put up Christmas trees, but not until like right before New Year's. And we're trying to put them up at the end of November. And they think we're a little bit, the crazy Americans. But I got used to that after a while. I think the hardest part for me in the beginning was my one of my spiritual gifts is hospitality. And I have a decent... God gifted me to be able to mostly make people feel comfortable and at home. And then I moved to this culture where everything was different. And the spiritual gift I had felt like it was not gifty anymore.
It wasn't gifty.
Because people would walk in and I would have this cute little buffet, serve yourself. And they would just stand there and look at me. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. And after I lived there a while, I realized, I needed to set them down at the table and I needed to give them food because they would happily eat whatever food I gave them. But the whole serve yourself thing was not a Serbian thing.
The buffet thing is definitely American.
It is definitely American and was very weird to them. So part of it was just getting used to that and then learning to explain things. Like when people would come over, hey, this is how we celebrate. But when I think specifically about Christmas, our first year in the States, we always did this gingerbread house decorating competition with our little life group back in Texas. And it grew and we would have lots of families come over and we would do this big thing. Well, we decided to try to do that there. It was our first Christmas there. And we invited 2 or 3 families over that we knew. And one of the families got there and then the dad was like, I didn't realize this was a kid thing. We'll be back later. And Trey's like, no, you have to stay. This is by the end, this dad was more into it than anybody. He was an engineer. They did this whole Christmas decorated football, soccer stadium thing.
Oh, wow.
They totally destroyed the rest of us in the thing. But just telling them, no, this is American, gave them the freedom to be more relaxed. And it was okay, well, I'll just do this thing with them. I'll be a good guest and do this thing. But then they had so much fun. And so that day when one of the moms left, she was like, I feel like I've been in an American movie.
That's cute.
And it was fun to be able to share what we did and them I guess the thing for me was getting over them looking at me like I was weird and me just embracing, yeah, I know it's weird, it's an American thing or this is the way we do it, and then just being able to just be real and learn to laugh together. Comes back to fun, learning to laugh together. And when the little girls are crying because they put too much candy on their thing and the walls fall down, and it was a bonding thing culturally. We could kind of comfort them and then kind of laugh as moms behind their back oh my goodness, the drama of the walls falling down on the gingerbread house. So Yeah, and then being able, when we welcomed people into our cultural stuff that probably felt weird to them, it opened the door and we got to go over to some people's houses for Serbian Christmas Eve and experience their traditions and just building that relationship through, this is the way we do it, this is the way you do it. And it took me a little while to get over that awkwardness of it.
Yeah.
But then there's a lot of beauty in
There
it.
is, isn't there?
And
Yes.
you can order pizza on Christmas Day because everything's open. So there's that too.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Randy.
You're welcome.
It was funny. Randy talked about making gingerbread houses with their local friends, and which brought to mind something that I did with one of my friends. We would do gingerbread cookie decorating parties with some of our local friends. We did that a couple of years, and that was really fun to do. So I'm glad we shared that with them.
We lived in North Africa. We had some of our local friends over, and Ellie and I both, one of the few things that my family did was we would often do some sort of Mexican food on Christmas Eve. So nachos, tacos. So we had some of our local friends over for tacos on Christmas Eve, and we watched Elf in French with English subtitles. Yeah, but it was fun kind of bringing them into that. They just thought it was so weird that we would eat tacos around Christmas because their understanding of Christmas is pretty much from the popular culture. So the next guest we have is my good friend Tim Robinson, who has been in Nigeria for 11 years. And you'll hear him tell the story, but how they really cultivated kind of a Christmas event.
And so this is Tim, good friend of mine. You've been in Nigeria for how long now?
This is our 11th year.
That's pretty good, right?
I know, right? It's not bad going. Yeah.
Let's talk about Christmas.
Christmas, the most wonderful time of the year.
I mean, I heard that in a song once.
Yeah, me too. I don't think it was based on the Bible, was it?
And what kind of things do you guys do around this time of year for connecting, for fun, for celebrating?
Yeah, Christmas. It's all about connecting and fellowshipping. I think we do a whole lot of different things. So, I mean, there are some great kind of community events in the city, like the chapel at the school we attend does like a 9 lessons and carols thing, which is always great fun. Found a little niche in there to help make that event happen smoothly and things like that. It has on occasion involved running to the back of the room to extinguish a fire because somebody plugged too much into a socket one time. All your normal Christmas cheer. Most people worry about lighting brandy on fire when they have their Christmas pudding in England, right? That's a big thing there, and everyone's always worried about bits of holly or party hats catching fire. No, electrical sockets are what we look for here.
That makes sense.
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, so that's quite a big community event. I think in our first year here, we I think we found ourselves a bit lost, really. All of the normal routines and connections and things weren't around. That's kind of part of what you have to process when you go to the field anyway, right?
Right.
And I think those kind of big family occasions, you're ready for it, but you're also not ready for it. It's like you knew, but also had no idea what it was actually going to be like. And we were blessed that, a couple invited us over for Christmas. I can say this publicly because we talked about it afterwards. We were a bit disappointed. It didn't quite tick our boxes. And we just sort of went home a little. But what it provoked was a really good conversation in our family to go, well, actually, no kidding. If that didn't meet expectations, what are our expectations? And what can we do about that? And it was kind of funny because we sort of sat and went, actually, food is quite a big deal, it turns out. In our house, I mean, I would say less so in my wife Ali's house, but only because we're a super foodie family on my side. And I think in the years we were married before coming here, Ali had quite aptly adapted her expectations to be quite foodie based around Christmas. And so it was really funny because we actually had a conversation with the couple. He was a really good cook, really good friends. And I said, hey, look, could you help me out and do something a little bit different, a little bit more special? Do you think we could maybe invite a few people over, get dressed up, put on a 3-course dinner for them and actually make an occasion out of it? At that time, there was very few restaurants you could go and eat out in. There was maybe only a couple in the city. And so we were like, can we make this sort of something special? And we sort of gingerly invited a few people over in the first year. It sort of grew over the years. And even after they left the field, we've carried on. There's a bunch of British things we try and do, Christmas pudding and brandy butter. We try and spend time looking for cheeses so that you can have cheese course with a selection of cheeses, and frankly cheese is rare and expensive, so we got into the pattern of like buying a freezer box load in England and bringing it back with us in the summer and stuff like that, knowing that Christmas is coming, and this has kind of become part of our Christmas thing. And so trying to figure out how can we do things with what's available here. So I've had to learn to make Christmas puddings, which is something you would never really bother doing in England because you can buy
them everywhere, right?
buy them for 10 quid off of Amazon, right? Learning to exactly, learning to make mince pies. It took us a few years to establish what sort of pastry we liked on our mince pies, because what's the point in making mince pies in England when you can buy them for £1.50 in Tesco's? Last Christmas, in the middle of pandemics and COVID and stuff, we're sort of kind of going, oh, are we not? And we kind of decided, actually, this thing has become such a blessing to people that we literally have one couple who come back from their furlough in America in September, and she messaged me the day after she goes back, hey, is Christmas happening this year? I just want to make sure, in September, for crying out loud. There was one year we had a family over, and frankly, it's a bit expensive to feed that many people. So we kind of have a donation tin and say, look, no pressure. We're not putting a ticket price on. If you feel like, you've had a good time and you're able to contribute, here's the tip. And one year I had the dad come into the kitchen, goes, well, how much do we need to owe you? I'm going, like I said, it's not like we're counting or selling tickets or anything. And his daughter from the dining room shouted to us in the kitchen, goes, Dad, you better give him enough to get an invite next year. And I was was like, oh, good job, right? Tick that box, job well done. Actually, it's kind of scratching an itch. People actually, I think, partly love the fact they don't have to do anything. The control freak in me wants to do a good job and be in charge of it all. And so I do it all. Ali and I have figured out how she can pitch in and help make that happen. But I don't expect anybody to, it's not a bring and share. We've prepped it all and we're kind of putting it all on. Fancy plates. But last year, pandemic and everything, we actually ended up having 23 people over. And we actually, I know, it was ridiculous. But we set it all up outside. So, we had a big table. Our dining room table kind of became a service area. So everyone would kind of file in, pick up their stuff and go outside and eat. And we kind of felt like that's a safe way of still doing it. And we kind of introduced quite early on, in between each course, that we would ask one of our guests to kind of prepare sort of Advent nativity type readings or engagements in between the courses, just because it takes time to prep that many plates and lay it up, and so different people have done different things over the year, and some people have gone for it with more gusto than others. One year some of the boys recreated a nativity scene in Lego and did a reading and present. So they would do the reading and then sort of present the Lego piece into the middle of the table as they were reading it. So I mean, it's been quite a fun thing to make happen. And this year we're now at 31 people.
Are you finding it's a fairly mixed group? Is it a lot of Brits?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, there is a lot of Brits. There is a lot of Brits, but also our neighbours. So we've got great Canadian friends that live upstairs, but there's 6 of them. And there's one American couple. They're not around this year, but they've come every year, and it's just been one of those things. They always have us over for Thanksgiving. We always have them over for Christmas, and it's just been one of those things. I don't know, when you're at home with your family, you have all these little kind of family things that happen, and the stories and the history, and hey, do you remember 2 years ago when they did this? And sort of Christmas has become with this group of people, and it's a little bit different every year depending on who's around and not around. Really, for us, really transformed our kind of community experience in terms of being able to provide something that people love and want to participate in, and sort of help people register that we're not at home with our family, but if we were, we'd be doing this. It's been quite an amazing sort of journey to go on with that. And actually, it was really funny. We're we're headed home on furlough next summer when Dan, our son, graduates high school. And we've sort of been talking and processing like with him a little bit with his sort of bucket list, what things do you want to do before we leave, and trying to help him process some of the transitions. And that's actually provoked, Ali and I to talk about some of that stuff as much as him. And like, we love the ministry we're involved in. We think it is phenomenal that God allows us to participate in helping people get scripture that they understand, right? It's phenomenal. But it's moments like Christmas with all those people where you eat for 2 hours, do some word quizzes, go and play some croquet on the lawn, and then I make everyone come and watch the Queen's speech.
Obviously.
Obviously. I didn't realize that Canadians love the Queen as they do. That was eye-opening. But it's like those relationships and that community that gets developed around those kinds of occasions is going to be the stuff that we really miss. Yeah, it is kind of our expat friends that we've kind of got into this groove with. Because I guess our heart was to help provide something for them to help make them feel like they're not missing home so much.
That's also important because that's part of what makes sustainability possible.
Yeah.
You had to initiate it. Like you created this thing that's been going on for 10 years, and it's work and it's planning. But when you look back 20 years from now, and when Dan looks back, Christmas is going to be one of his most powerful memories.
Because we recognized that was a need we had. And then sort of we suddenly realized that other people had that need and that actually we could help with that. Yeah, for us, it's been such a joy to be able to do it. I mean, I love cooking myself. I mean, I love eating. And I think when you love eating, you should also learn to love cooking.
Hey, buddy, I got to run here. But
no, this is
thanks so much for sharing some of your Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, James.
Just thinking about the stories and the conversations we've had, I think that for me, one of the biggest takeaways is just how important it is to make these holidays and celebrations happen in a way that is important for you and for your family.
Yeah, sorry. It might take a while to figure that out too, to put the work into it and figure out how to make it important to you, how to make it work in the culture that you're living in and just the atmosphere you're working and living into. But it is worth it.
For sure. I think some people just kind of go in because there's like, I don't know what's going to happen. They're not necessarily prepared to do something. And the people I talked to, like it really centered around them initiating and creating something, not waiting to see if anybody else did, but saying this is important and we're going to do it. And we're going to invite people into that. And I think that's what is really worth doing. Christmas, like it's just worth making it happen. And for some people, it's planning ahead. Like when you move, you take some of those important Christmas decorations, whether it's the star that you inherited from your great grandmother or the nativity set that your family loves putting together, and just thinking that stuff ahead. Like my grandma used to send me with wrapped presents in July if I happened to be in the States.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
that's
she
so
was
thoughtful. Right.
I think for families to really think through and do that stuff. Like you hear Tim talk about bringing cheese at whatever point they happen to be in the UK and freezing it because they want to have their cheese in Christmas.
Exactly. My mom would send us candy canes. And that was really important to have, peppermint candy canes. So yeah. I mean, you can also use those as currency too for the other, families that are missing candy canes. Like, oh, I got some. How much you want to pay for it? So like a little side money. It is important just to put some time into figuring out your family culture and your family traditions. Maybe there's things the local culture too that you can add to your celebrations. So
yeah, and to find ways to integrate those and to make your own, but I just encourage people to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, go home.
Right.
A lot of times, especially in our line of work, so much kind of slows down over the holidays because working cross-culturally, different organizations, different countries. Some countries celebrate, more on Three Kings Day or on Christmas Eve. So it winds up being this month where a lot of stuff just doesn't happen. And I think some people just need permission to say, hey, if you've got the financial capability, sometimes it's just worth going back home. And that's absolutely okay.
Absolutely. Just to have the connection with family during that important time of year too is really important. So give yourself permission to do that.
I'll hear sometimes people like planning to leave to go to a new location overseas, beginning of December, mid-December. And I'm like, don't do that. Like,
don't do that to yourself.
You can wait, and people will do this with kids too. I'm like, wait 2 weeks, have another Christmas with the grandparents. Everybody will really treasure that, and go in the first of the year. Like, it's, even if you're going to a context that doesn't celebrate Christmas, it doesn't, just wait it out and have some good connecting and family. And
can you imagine moving overseas for the first time in December and trying to figure it all out, and you're homesick and culture shock?
Well, and people are busy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are traveling or visiting or doing their own kind of plans, and so some of your support system's not even there.
Right. Interesting, because I was talking to Tracy this morning about the podcast, and we were remembering some of the holidays that the local culture celebrated, and it was a Muslim culture. So they celebrated the Eid, they celebrated Ramadan, and in our culture that was called Korban, which is the holiday associated with the Hajj.
Mm.
And so that was celebrated. It changes every year. It moves with the lunar calendar, I believe. And so when we were there, celebrating in the wintertime in January, so not too far after Christmas. And they would, if you had enough money, you would buy a sheep and kill it and then share the meat with your neighbors and people who are poor. It's like, what a beautiful picture, beautiful expression of love and generosity. And which just got me thinking about looking at sort of the beauty and images of God's love for us and different cultures and how they celebrate different things. As you're missing your own culture, missing the traditions or the cues that you get to look around you also and just notice the beauty and the things in the culture you're living in.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks so much for listening. Welcome to season 2, and Merry Christmas, everybody.
Strashtishvam. In Russian. You gotta say it like it's Slavic. Strashtishvam. Thanks. Merry Christmas.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome, everyone. Trying to
Stellar start.
Why is it so hard?
Now I play inline hockey, which is much safer.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I was going to say chess in the park was where I thought you were going.